Hi, it's John Moe. Coming up this hour on Wits, a look into the unexpected thoughts of some of our favorite literary guests. For instance, Patton Oswalt. The comedian and actor is also the author of the book Zombie Spaceship Wasteland. He joins us to provide some context for this.
And what's more rock and roll than a wolf and a cannon about to shoot?
And monologuist actress author of Saturday Night Live alum Julia Sweeney shares a story about having the talk with her daughter. It does not go smoothly.
Maybe we can look on Wikipedia and it will show you.
Plus music from two of our favorite singer, songwriter, authors, Josh Ritter and John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats. All this and fantasy author Neil Gaiman is coming up after the news. From APM, American Public Media, and Minnesota Public Radio, this is Wits. I'm John Moe. On this week's program, we're getting a little bookish, a bit library-oriented. But please know, I am the kind of sexy librarian who wears the glasses and puts my hair up. Then if I take off my glasses and remove one pin from my hair, it all cascades down, and I'm beautiful. Hey, it's radio. Can you prove I'm wrong? Okay, then. This hour, some visits from guests who write books, not all of whom you might think of as authors. Patton Oswalt is a friend of our show. You may know him from his stand-up comedy, his roles on The King of Queens, Ratatouille, Big Fan, Young Adult. He's also an author, and he shared a selection from his book, Zombie Spaceship Wasteland.
This is an excerpt from a chapter called Mary C. Runfola Explains Her Gifts. This is my grandmother, the late Mary C. Runfola, who was an awesome person and gave the most nonsensical, near hallucinatory gifts I've ever received in my life. And it was so clear that she was happy. She was way more excited to explain why she's giving you the gift than experiencing the joy of giving you something that actually applied to you. And so here we go. For my 8th birthday, I received a picture of Chuck Yeager signed to someone named Jimmy. And she really gave me this. Well, I know how much you like that Space Battles movie, and I thought, yes, all right, dear, Star Wars. So, anyway, I was at this rummage sale, and they had a table. Well, one man there had a table, and I don't think he was with the rummage sale people because he had his table set up a little bit off to the side. Well, he had 2 tables. One table was all these photographs of celebrities, and the other table had a large beach towel over it, and I couldn't see it was under the beach towel, but I was standing there looking at the different pictures, and every now and then a young man would come up to the man selling pictures, and all these young men either had these really close crew cuts or blonde hair, and they looked as if a punch in the face could get up and walk around and wear clothing. And the man selling pictures would let them lift the towel, and it looked like all these knives and Nazi stuff, and the punch-in-the-face men would buy a knife or a patch. Maybe they were actors buying props for a stage show. Oh, but anyway, Chuck Yeager, well, you like yes, dear, Star Wars. Well, you like that movie so much, and did you know Chuck Yeager was kind of a space pilot, like that Han Solo fellow? Yes, I know Han Solo. Your grandmother didn't just fall off the pickle truck. Han Solo and Mr. Spock and Robbie Robot and everyone else in that movie. Well, the signature meant that Chuck Yeager actually held this photo, which makes it even more valuable. For my 11th birthday, I got the cassette case for AC/DC's For Those About to Rock with a Best of Steppenwolf cassette inside of it. Here's Grandma Runfola. Well, you wouldn't believe it. There was a blind box sale where you buy a box for 50 cents and you get whatever's in it. Except this box had been under a leaky drain pipe, so one of the corners was soaked and kind of caving in. So I talked the man down to a dime. Can you imagine? Inside there were 12 baby bibs that I gave to your cousin Jesse. Maybe he could wipe something down with them in the summer. And then there was this cassette, and it looks like a rock band. Well, when I opened it up, there was only half a cassette. and these 3 big dead beetles, which I guess eat plastic, or maybe not because it's almost like they ate the plastic and then died. But then this other cassette was in the box inside a bag of marbles, so I put it inside this case. It's got Wolf in the name of the band, and on the case is a cannon, and what's more rock and roll than a wolf and a cannon about to shoot? My 25th birthday, I got a lantern shaped like an owl. I really did.
Nice.
Lantern shaped like an owl. Do you remember the Frasers? They had the daughter who did gymnastics and the son who went to college and kept hugging other boys, and now he's a swimming coach. Well, they knew these people who were having an estate sale last summer, so we all went out there, me and the 2 Fraser parents, not their kids. So we get there, and it turns out the estate sale was the day before. We'd driven all this way. We couldn't believe it. So on the way back, driving back home, we see this antique shop. It's the most hodgepodge-looking place I think I ever saw. And we go in, and I got this lovely hourglass that on the one side looks like an A, but the other side of the glass is square, like a box. And Jeannie, that's Mrs. Fraser, she bought a flag for a country. I think it was Iceland. And Mr. Fraser didn't buy anything, but he loved all these old toy soldiers. And he said, I don't have the space to keep them anywhere, but he sure loved them. And when we left, it was raining. And they weren't too sure about going down the road we were on because it was getting muddy. So we stopped at a Hardee's, and we were sitting down with our sandwiches. I realized I'd left the hourglass back at the store. So we asked the Hardee's if we could use their phone, because it was a local call, and they were so nice. And we called, and the man from the shop drove all the way down to the Hardee's and gave me the hourglass. He was the nicest man. You could tell the people at Hardee's knew him, and he must be popular, which is no surprise, seeing how he treats his customers. The owl I bought at a Rite Aid. And then, finally, for my 30th birthday, your mother said to get you a Banana Republic gift certificate. I know, I miss her presents. I miss them.
That's Patton Oswalt. When he was on the show, we played a little game. You see, I know that Patton is a fan of role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons. So we got out our 20-sided dice for a little something called Dungeons and Pattons. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to mentally don your wizard hats. Patton Oswalt?
Yes.
It is 1985, and you have traveled back in time. You find yourself at an airport with 2 sets of tickets in your hand.
What are my stats? What's my strength?
We don't have time to roll for
Oh,
it.
we don't? All right.
No.
I do have 3 belt pouches, though. So
Okay, good. Thank you. 1 set of tickets takes you to Athens, Georgia, where a young band named REM is
Sounds
playing
lame.
a
They sound
record.
lame.
They're playing a record release party for Fables of the Reconstruction. The other tickets take you to the 1985 San Diego Comic-Con. Where do you go?
Who are the? Can I as the dungeon master, or as the
Patent Master.
the patent master?
Yeah.
Who are the guests at the Comic Con?
I think it doesn't say. It just says you need to go and see
go.
who's there. Yeah.
Oh, if only I knew if Gil Gerard was there. That would really sway me. All right, so I'm looking at series Athens, Georgia, San Diego. Damn it! I gotta play my character, man. I gotta play my character. I would go to San Diego.
You're going to Comic-Con.
Yeah. Sorry, I would go to San
All right.
Diego.
Let's make sure. Let's roll to see if you don't
Okay.
crash.
All right. No botch. No botch. Oh God, I rolled a 1. That's a botch. I can't believe I rolled a 1.
But in Dungeons and Patents, that counts for a 20, so you're okay.
Oh,
All right.
I thought I was gonna die on my way to see Manimal.
You arrive at the convention center, and you can walk down one path and meet the best young artists of their generation publishers eager to publish whatever they put out, and they're eager to work on a new project missing only an idea. Or you can walk down the other path and talk to Stan Lee about his thoughts on comics as movies.
Gotta see Stan the man. All right, roll. I'm gonna roll a 20 and cut his head off. 8.
8. Okay. All right. You're through. You're through.
Okay.
You meet Stanley. He says that he doubts comics could ever work as movies. The art forms just don't mesh. He wants to know what you think.
Let's roll to see what I think. All right. 11. I agree with him.
Okay.
You know, Stan, the second Swamp Thing movie was pretty lame. You're right. There's no future in this. Superman 4: The Quest for Peace was really crappy. I think it's over.
Even Spider-Man?
No. I think that, you know what? Despite the TV series starring that guy Nicholas something, help me out. Nicholas Hammond. Yeah. I think that with improved special effects, a la The Last Starfighter, a Spider-Man movie is quite feasible. But only if you get Robert Preston to play Spider-Man.
The future with the Robert Preston Spider-Man.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see what happens here. We need to decide your fate coming out of Comic-Con. Okay, it's a 9. Means, yep, you've been awarded a magical amulet. Congratulations. You can choose which comics become movies. You can assign directors and actors, and you can dictate the vision of what that movie should be. What do you make first? What gets turned into a movie, and what does it look like?
Jamie Farr is the Green Lantern. And it's directed by Hal Needham.
From Smokey and the Bandit?
Oh, yeah. The Green Lantern has to get a truck full of Owen power batteries from Texarkana back to Georgia. He makes a bet with Sinestro, who's played by Paul Williams. He has 24 hours. Him and the Green Arrow, his sidekick Green Arrow, played by Dom DeLuise, have got to get this truck full of power batteries back to Georgia in 24 hours.
All right. Let's roll to see how it does. Ooh, it's a 14.
Oh,
not bad.
Nice.
Decent enough for sequels.
Not sequels.
All right, and lastly, you are at another crossroads. You can choose to go back to the present time, or remain where you are and conquer and manipulate the world before you.
I don't even have to roll for that, my friend. I'm going to stay in the 80s. And let's just say that the Watchmen are going to have to tangle with Josie and the Pussycats.
Congratulations, you're victorious in Dungeons and Patents. Patton Oswalt, comedian, author, and successful gamer when he plays himself in a role-playing game. Coming up on Wits, more comedy and music from guests who are writers of books, including Julia Sweeney, John Hodgman, and Josh Ritter. And a visit with Neil Gaiman, who displays his wicked wit of the West. This is Wits. I'm John Mel. This is Wits. I'm John Moe. John Hodgman is an actor. He's the resident expert on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. He's a sort of judge on the Judge John Hodgman podcast. He's also an author, best known for his series of books with made-up facts, including the areas of my expertise and more information than you require. Here he is reading from the latest book in that series of complete world knowledge, That Is All.
Wine is a subtle, complex creature that's freighted with so much long history and so many different styles that I, like most, presumed that it could only be enjoyed by rich jerks. But I was wrong. While indeed wine is a noble drink, it also could not be more humble. After all, it's the simplest thing in the world to make, requiring only grapes, the yeast, human feet, and time, plus an enormous amount of pharmaceutical-grade pseudoephedrine, and various beakers and Bunsen burners. Such is how the European peasantry made and enjoyed wine since 6000 BC. In quaint, thatched, mobile wine laboratories that still evade capture today. Of all the varieties of wine, red wine, white wine, box wine, and prison toilet wine, one kind of wine is red wine. Red wine, named for its color, is known to have the most healthful tannins and antioxidants. This is why the baby boomers love to drink it. For doctors agree, if you drink one glass of red wine every day, you will become immortal. And you will also gradually transform into Francis Ford Coppola. Red wine also offers the greatest depth of flavor, ranging from the bright berry, ozone, and burnt hair notes of a jammy Cabernet Beausoleil to the wines made from the luxuriously pungent Argentine Velociraptor grape, with their blend of bitter chocolate and chewed-up aluminum foil and fried crickets. These wines have the viscosity of Marmite and spit. And connoisseurs know not to pour them into a glass, but to rub them on your bare chest like a poultice. Like most people, you probably believe that red wine may only be served with blood-colored meals, such as beefsteaks and heavy spaghettis with blood sauce. But it is not so. Red wines also complement meaty steak fish like tuna or thick fish. And they even go surprisingly well with some vegetarian entrees, such as flesh salad. Some famous people who enjoy red wine include Val Kilmer, but what about white wine? White wine, a general term for any wine made from ghost grapes, that is to say, grapes that have died and come back as ghosts. That is why white wine is always so cold. White wines are often aged in oak barrels, which not only makes the wine older, sometimes by years, but it also affects the flavor dramatically. Chardonnay in particular is famous for its oaky, barrel-y flavors. And that is why when you drink it, you feel like you are licking wooden furniture that has been made out of headaches.
John Hodgman reading from That Is All. While John was writing that book, he listened to the music of the Mountain Goats a lot. The Mountain Goats showed up at the Fitzgerald Theater and sang this song.
On the morning when I woke up without you for the first time, I felt free, and I felt lonely, and I felt scared. And I began to talk to myself almost immediately. the only person there. The first time I made coffee for just myself, I made too much of it, but I drank it all, just 'cause you hate it when I let things go to waste. And I wandered through the house like a little boy, lost in the mall, and an astronaut could have seen the hunger in my eyes from space. And I sang, oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do without you? On the morning when I woke up without you, for the first time, I was real cold, so I pulled on a sweater. I turned up the heat, and the walls began to close in, and I felt so sad and frightened. I practically ran from the living room out into the street. And the wind began to blow, and all of the trees began to bend, and the world in its cold way started coming alive. And I stood there like a businessman, waiting for a train. And I got ready for the future to arrive. And I sang, oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do without you?
It's the Mountain Goats on stage at the Fitzgerald Theater on Wits. Now, our first ever guest on Wits was Julia Sweeney, and she read this story at that show, and this story will be part of her upcoming book, If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother.
One evening, on a school night when my daughter Mulan was 8 years old, we were eating dinner together at a Thai restaurant, and she told me that her class had begun studying all about frogs. And she said, so Mom, so first the frogs lay eggs, and then the eggs turn into tadpoles, and then the tadpoles turn into frogs, right? And I said, yeah, that's right, but I think it's just the females that lay the eggs. And Mulan said, oh, only the females lay the eggs? Well, what do the male frogs do then? And I said, well, they fertilize them. And she said, well, what does fertilize them mean? And I said, oh, the males make this substance inside them. It's like this co-ingredient for making tadpoles. And then they sprinkle it on the eggs. And then she said, so only the females have the eggs. And I said, yes. And she said, is that true for humans too? Now let me freeze this scene for a moment to say that even as I considered myself an enlightened, open-minded, sex-is-no-big-deal parent, I hadn't truly prepared myself for this moment. I mean, I had read a few parenting books, and they all seemed to advise the same thing, which was when your child starts to ask you about sex, or really anything that is complicated or multifaceted, just answer the exact question they ask. Nothing more, do not elaborate, don't overshare. And so in that sense, I suppose I was prepared for this moment. I wasn't going to stop and take her hand and get all watery-eyed and explain how the beautiful way that we create more children in the world. That wasn't what she was asking. She wanted to know if human women had eggs. The answer was clear and unambiguous. Yes, I said. I let there be a little pause. I tried to think of some other subject to move on to, but before I could, Mulan said, well, where do women keep their eggs? And I wanted to say, in a vault, in a little purse, in a Tupperware bowl in the back of the refrigerator. But I couldn't joke. That was definitely not in the advice books, just the facts. So I said, well, funnily enough, we have evolved to have our own pond right in our own bodies. And that's where we keep our eggs. Where is it? Mulan asked, her eyes bigger than ever. It's in our lower abdomen, inside sort of below our belly button area. Well, how do the eggs get fertilized? By the man, I said, smiling. I looked deeply at my green furry. I tried to think about how to get this conversation back to frogs. Milan said, I know, but how? I said, well, he has this substance called sperm. I said this with my eyes darting around, just like my mother would have done in this situation.